What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some routes from five-star wide receiver and Oregon wide receiver Jurion Dickey. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and you would like a 2-month-long daily gym and on-field workout schedule to follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate 8-week wide receiver workout plan. It's over 500-plus wide receiver drills, gym exercises, all broken down with sets and reps for you to follow, and a video example of each drill, an example of each gym exercise. So I hope this video helps you guys out. If you guys want some more information on that workout plan, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started. So now we're going to be breaking down some one-on-one routes from this wide receiver Dickey here. Again, 5-star wide receiver, very, very high football route running IQ, and that's what I want to showcase in this clip. So this first example, he is going to be running like a 10 to 12 yard dig route, and he has this inside shade press coverage look. DB's not giving him much room off the ball. So let's play this thing full speed, then we'll break it down. So he comes off the ball, quick speed release to the outside, and he works this great hip drop, slip under, and throw by move at the top of the break. So let's talk about this thing, right? So anytime that you guys are running routes, when it comes to having a high route running IQ, you got to look for three specific things in DB. Number one, you have to look for his leverage. So his leverage essentially means where he is shaded. So is he shaded to the inside of you like he is in this case? Is he head up right in front of you, or is he shaded to the outside? We're going to talk about all three of those looks throughout this video and how he runs routes versus those looks. But in this case, he's shaded to the inside. So that means a couple of things. Just based on his leverage, we can assume a few things about his coverage. Number one, he's trying to take away an inside route. So he's trying to prevent the slant, he's trying to prevent the dig, the post, anything inside breaking. And he is trying to force us to his help on the field. Now, you might think, well, he's inside leverage. He doesn't have any help. The sideline is his biggest help, because if we're running out of bounds, if we're trying to run like a fade route, for example, and we're a yard away from the sideline, we are out of the play. That QB is not going to give us the ball. So we automatically know that by his leverage. Now, everybody talks about, oh, well, coach, how do I pick a release? How do I know which release to choose off the ball? And that has a lot to do with the distance that the DB has from you. So that's the second thing you want to look for. So you look for his leverage, and then you look for the distance. Because if he's, maybe 2 to 3 yards off, and you got to run this dig route, you maybe don't want to just take a speed release and run, because he's going to be able to get hands and force you right to that sideline. You probably want to attack his leverage, close the distance, then take your outside release. But if he's right up on the line of scrimmage, he's already closed the distance. Maybe we can use this speed release. Maybe I give him a quick jab to the inside, whatever it is. So he's quick, he's inside shade, he's inside leverage, and he's got maybe about a yard of space. So we know we got to get off the ball quick and take what he gives me with the outside release. A lot of wide receivers think that on an inside breaking route, I have to take an inside release. That is not the case, fellas, because remember, we know based on the DB's leverage, his goal is to take away the inside. So if my game plan is give him a jab outside, set him up outside, slip inside, he's not going to let us do it if he is disciplined. So you have to get comfortable as a wide receiver taking what the DB gives us to the outside. Now, the last thing you want to look for is coverage. That's more so for like a real game scenario when there's a chance of him running zone. This is one-on-one, so that's easy. We obviously know that it's man coverage. So we got inside shade, pressed up right on the line, man-to-man coverage. So when Dickey comes off the ball here, he takes this outside release. This is a tough route to run. This is not an easy route to run, but you see a lot of top-tier wide receivers in the NFL doing this because they understand how important timing is and how important spacing is. Because honestly, the whole goal of DB and press is to get hands on us, to disrupt the timing, and to reroute us. But if we don't force that inside release when he's inside leverage, we take the outside release and we're on time. My quarterback is still on time with his footwork to the drop, and that is the most important thing. Now, everybody's hesitant about doing this type of break because of this exact situation right here. What if this DB, because in man coverage, everybody knows that you want to stack a DB, right? So you come off the ball, you want to get over the top of this DB where he is trailing your back hip. That's what stacking means. So you get to the top of the route and you could give like a crossover move, you could give a head fake outside, DB jumps, and then we get separation back in. But again, that's not always the case. Maybe the DB's fast, maybe the DB gets a good play on this, maybe I don't set him up with my release enough like in this situation. So at the break point, you got to trust the break. You got to trust yourself at the top of the route. So what he does here, DB's in a good position. He throttles down. He drops those hips. He sits down violently into the break, fellas. When you guys can sell vertical and get this DB to commit his hips, run full speed, run full stride downfield, and you can drop on a dime, we have the advantage. And if you use that inside arm to swat him by at the back of his shoulder, back of his hip, back of his arm, now we slip under. I have this exact spacing I need needed on the play, and I kept timing with my quarterback. That quarterback would rather have the break maybe be a little bit slower, and you keep spacing and you keep timing because now he has time to throw, or space to throw you open rather. Because think about this play concept. Let's go back to the very, very beginning. Let's say this is Dickey here, and he's like the X receiver, and then you have the slot receiver here. Let's say Dickey has to run a 10 to 12 yard dig, and the slot is running like an 8 to 10 yard dig. And we have inside shade press. If you force it and get rerouted and you run this dig and you're right next to this 8-yard one defender can guard 2 routes. And that is the DB doing his job. He disrupted spacing and he disrupted timing on the break. So fellas, we have to get comfortable with this. You either can stack him and give a move, or if he doesn't let you, let's work that throw by technique. But this is textbook right here. Now, at the break point, you guys can kind of see one thing. You see how this wide receiver, or Dickey here at the break point, raises up. You see how his chest raises up, his head raises up, his hips raise up. That is an indicator. Now, this wide receiver, this DB, his eyes are high. He's looking at the wide receiver's eyes and shoulders. That's not where a DB's eyes should be. His eyes should be on our hips. So we have to be very careful that we don't raise up. Because when you raise up and you give away the break, that DB throttles down and he sits. But because this DB had bad eye discipline, he was able to get separation on this. But against a more disciplined DB who watches his hips, he might have sat on this thing. Regardless of me selling vertical, that is an indicator. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Okay, so now, next example we're going to be looking at here is Dickey running a 10-yard out route from the outside. So based on his pre-snap alignment from this DB, what can we know? Because listen, we have a pre-snap process, like we said. We're looking for 3 specific things. Number 1, we're obviously looking for the DB's leverage, right? Is he outside, head up, or inside? Number 2, we're looking at the distance from me, right? So is he right up on the line of scrimmage? Is he 2 to 3 yards off? Is he an off man? Then last but not least, zone or man. So we know that this is man, obviously. So he looks like what? Outside leverage, pressed up right on the line of scrimmage. So if you have to run a 10-yard out, what do you think you want to do? It would be the exact same thing as that dig, just flipped. You would take the inside release. But now, DBs are crafty individuals. They will disguise their coverage because, again, some DBs are probably watching this right now to get the wide receiver perspective of things. So they know when to disguise their coverage, what to look for with the wide receiver. And that's smart. DBs are smart players because it's the second hardest position on the field. So let's watch what this DB does here. He disguises his leverage. So he shows outside, shades back to the inside to throw off Dickey. Now, Dickey does end up taking the inside releaser, which shows you that he is a very, very physically gifted route runner to be able to do that, because not a lot of wide receivers can do that. And we're going to talk about why he did it. But this is the thing, fellas. This DB shows outside shade on the snap. He shades inside. You have to be able to react on the fly as a wide receiver. You can't just, okay, I'm taking the inside release no matter what, and then end up getting rerouted. Now, the reason why Dickey forces the inside release here is because he's lined up very, very wide. So you guys have to remember, fellas, your spacing on the play matters. Because you see here, he's lined up. He's probably lined up, I would say, like it's tough to see. You'll see it when we play the clip full speed. Maybe on like the middle of the numbers, bottom of the numbers on the field, right? Like everybody knows on a football field, you got the numbers. You got the 10, the 20, 30, etc. Wide receivers, when you guys are running an outside breaking route from the outside, you got to give yourself some room. So pre-snap, you need to line up like on the top of the numbers, cut your split down because of this specific case. The DB disguises that leverage and you're super wide. And let's say Dickey were to take an outside release here. This DB could get hands on us, squeeze us to the sideline. And when you break on that out route, we have no room. You have to give the quarterback space to throw you open on any out route, corner route, comeback, or even a fade route. You got to give him space. So that's why your split is super important. Now, Dickey does a great job here, setting this DB up to the outside and having a plan with his hands. Remember, when you're trying to take an inside release, the only hand that is going to prevent you from doing that is the DB's inside hand. So if we have a plan, if we're physical, if we're attacking the points of control, this DB's elbow, the back of his shoulder, that allows us to get off the ball, right? Because again, if we can get the DB's points of control, elbow, shoulder, and maybe set him up to the outside where his feet set to the outside, that forces his hips to lock out. And that lockout of his hips is how we can get him to flip vertical and get more separation at the break point. So if you gotta force it, fellas, if there's a situation where you must inside release like this, or maybe a situation where you must outside release, have a plan for your hands. Know which hand you have to be able to take that release, and don't be afraid to be physical off the ball. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. Again, great job by Dickey dealing with the disguise and leverage. Spacing of the play could have been a little bit better in terms of his split, just so he has more room if if he needed to, take the outside release. So now, this next route here is going to be a great example of restacking, okay? So we talked about restacking in the very beginning. So what's the DB's leverage here? Every single clip that you look at, whether I'm breaking down the film or whether you're breaking down film, whether you're just watching, route running highlights, you should be going over that pre-snap process in your head so you can familiarize yourself with that. So number one, what's his leverage? Is he outside leverage? Is he inside leverage? Or is he head up? He's head up, right? So when he's head up, Dickey's going to be running a deep post here. So when we have head up press, right? And again, you see there's a little bit more space than the last two DBs. He's not right up on the line of scrimmage. You maybe about have a yard or two. So remember, we're looking for leverage, distance, and coverage. So we obviously know the coverage. We obviously know the leverage now. He's head up. And then we look at the distance. So I got some space here. So what do I got to do with that space? I got to close the space. I got to go try to step on this guy's toes. I got to go make him uncomfortable with my release. Now, if you're running a post route and you have head up press, what type of release do you want to take, inside or outside? Inside, because that's the easier release to take. Whenever you have head up press, you have a two-way release. You can release outside, you can release inside, unless that DB jumps and disguises it. But you got to understand that. It's based more so on the route in terms of what release you take. So let's play this full speed and let's watch what he does. So he closes the space, gives a move, fights the inside arm, is able to stack, and then you see the separation he's able to get on that deep post. That's as good as it gets, fellas. That's all we were asking for. Remember, we got to close the space with him, which is what he's doing. We got to make him uncomfortable and step on his toes. He's giving him a fake to the outside to hold the DB there, get him to hesitate there, and to take the inside release like we said. Which hand do we have to beat? DB's inside hand. Are we even worried about the outside hand? No. You're not even worried about it because that you could fight that hand, you could dip your shoulder, you could swat his hands off you throughout the stem. Kind of like almost like a secondary release, if you will. So again, Dickey does a great job closing the space, gives a move, and again, he's got a plan for his hands. Let's swat the wrist, let's swat the elbow, let's swat the shoulder. So when we swat him, I want you to watch what he does with his left shoulder now. He dips it. He's dipping the shoulder, and there's that recovery hand like we talked about. The recovery hand don't matter, fellas. Like, it can get hands, it can reroute us if we're running super tall and we don't dip like he does right here. But if you dip that shoulder and you're fighting that hand, shrugging it off, again, that puts us in a position to be able to restack, maybe draw a hold like we do right here. Or, honestly, fellas, it just keeps timing with the quarterback. If you know which hand to beat and you can set up that DB off the line with your feet, it makes it that much easier to stay on time with the QB, help yourself with spacing. Because again, if you give the quarterback space, that's an easy money throw for him. So that's how you'd run that deep post, fellas, versus head up press. It's a two-way go situation. If he had to run like a corner and he had head up press, he would do the same thing but the opposite way. Let's set him up to the inside, take the outside release, and let's focus on beating his outside hand. And then if he recovers with this hand, we dip that right shoulder, get skinny, get into his frame so we could stack. Or maybe if he's right on my hip, I could lean into him, give him a hard jab, and get that separation. So let's play this full speed one more time. Dickey has a very, very high route running IQ, fellas. He knows how to run routes, and he's going to be a great addition to that Oregon offense. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like an 8-week wide receiver workout schedule, everything wide receivers should be doing in the gym and on the field, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to get you guys on that. I'll see you guys next time.